Everyone, Tory here with Let's Get Invested. Today we're going to be talking about electronic vehicles and their future. Everyone is wondering what's going on with Tesla. Where did NIO come from? Toyota, have they said something? QuantumScape, is their battery technology legit? With us today is Dr. Taylor D. Sparks, professor of materials science and engineering at the University of Utah. He has received his PhD from Harvard in applied physics, and he's agreed to share some of his knowledge with us today as it relates to batteries and the future of electronic vehicles. One of his specialties is ceramics, which he will get into how that relates to batteries. I'm going to chime in every little bit and just kind of talk about how I think this relates to our portfolio and how we're investing, and what I think the future of the market's going to look like when it comes to electronic vehicles. Taylor, thank you so much for being with us today.
Hey, my pleasure. I'll just say a caveat is that batteries are not my primary area of expertise, but I do work a fair bit with them and I know the community fairly well, so I'm happy to share any insight, but I'm sorry if I get something wrong at the same time with me. So all batteries are composed of three parts, okay? So if you looked at your battery, you opened it up, you would find that there's the anode, the cathode, and the electrolyte. So I'll just call those A, E, and C. So we've been saying that at the anode, that's where your graphite is.
Okay.
And again, the reason that we use graphite, it has this nice layered structure, and you can just put your lithium ions in between here, and they can come and go really easily, okay? On the cathode side, you typically have like a transition metal oxide, and it comes over here to the cathode externally. The reason that the electron travels externally is, and this is very important, is that you cannot have electron transport across the electrolyte. That is not allowed.
Okay.
That is like one of the primary jobs of the electrolyte, is to block electron transfer, because instead you want the electron to transfer through the external circuit. Like this would be your phone up here. You want the electrons to have to travel through your phone or your device or whatever in order to get to the other side, and that's how you power your device. It's damaged, right? They have all sorts of tests for this. Like they have like the nail puncture test, where they'll drive like a nail straight through this thing. And so now imagine what happens in a puncture test with a nail going through it. Now you have a piece of metal going right through your device, right? This is all now metal. So now you have a bridge, you have a path for your electrons to travel right through to get from one side to the other. So that means they're not going to go through your phone. They're just going to go straight through your device. And it's a small metal area. So what happens is that as the electrons travel across that piece of metal, they heat it up. So now you've got a hot piece of metal in a bath of organic solvent, which is flammable. And that's why these batteries were catching on fire. So if the Samsung Note and all these different things, you couldn't fly with them on airplanes because a couple caught on fire, it was because of these liquid electrolytes, right? That's what was causing that. So that's really a pretty huge safety problem. Lithium-ion batteries are really great, but they do have safety problems because of this liquid electrolyte that they use in general with lithium-ion batteries. So here's another problem with the organic electrolyte. There's something called dendrite formation. So charge, what you start getting is lithium. Normally you want the lithium to like live inside of these graphite layers, right? You want it to act like a little hotel and it just goes between those layers and it's fine. But that's not always what happens. In fact, what was happening is you were getting dendrites forming kind of like stalactites and stalagmites in a cave, growing from the anode side and growing across here, right? So these metal, you'd literally see like lithium metal precipitating and then growing all the way across. And then once they touched, now you've got another bridge for your electrons to go from one side to the other. And so it would catch fire again. So even though there's no like nail that punched through this is just it. You have metal plating on the anode side and growing its way across like little snowflakes.
Super dangerous.
The Tesla battery, well, at least as of battery day, what and there's a lot of things they did, but one of the things that they talked about is the anode, right? So the anode over here, which I said was graphite before, right? We said that was graphite. They don't use graphite. They use silicon, nano silicon chunks, right? So they just use silicon. So the lithium can go into the silicon structure. But one of the problems is that if you've got this silicon nanoparticle and then you stuff it full of lithium, right? So you start cramming it full of these lithium ions, it swells. It swells a bunch. It gets bigger. And as it swells, it cracks. And so that's been like a well-known problem in the battery field for a while. We know that we can get higher energy density by using silicon. You can pack more of it in there than graphite, but we also know that it cracks. So Tesla was saying this big announcement, you know, and they got, in my mind, they had like the wind taken out of their sails by this QuantumScape announcement, because they were like, hey, we figured out this sweet solution of they make their silicon really small and then they encapsulate it. So their silicon looks something like this. You've got your particle, and then they're doing some sort of, I think, polymer encapsulation that allows it to expand without cracking or something like that. But then you got QuantumScape, who's like, yeah, we'll just get rid of it. Just do straight up lithium is so much better. And Tesla is still using an organic flammable electrolyte. As far as I know, they are not doing anything solid state. So I don't think that's sustainable. I think that there's too much hype around Toyota and QuantumScape, what they're doing with solid state. I think in the next year, you'll see Tesla move to either acquire a company or partner with a company. But I don't know, because they just made their big like gigafactories, right, for making all these batteries. It They're going to want to do it themselves. So I don't know if they're going to buy the technology from someone and then implement it themselves, but something's coming for.
I like Tesla. I think it's very inventive. I think anything Elon Musk touches turns to gold. I think he is an innovator and possibly from the future. The guy is just brilliant. I don't know if I think that Tesla stock is going to bomb. I actually think over the next 5 years, we could see it at 1600. I think the current price is pretty high considering they only got 500,000 vehicles out this past year, but that was during a pandemic. They're opening their China factory, they're opening their stuff in Germany. I don't think it's going to bomb 43% like the analysts are thinking. I think we could see, and I think it's going to go up more than 900. I, people have underestimated this stock at every turn, every time, except for, people, except for actual everyday investors, and they love it. Tesla is a very loved company. Now, does that always equal dollars? If people are buying the cars, the batteries, the solar cells, I feel like Tesla is gonna be a long-term company. Now, do they have the best technology with batteries now? Nope. Do they need to be worried about Neo? Not quite, because Neo for a few years is not going to be at a manufacturing capacity to keep up with China, more or less encroach on the United States. And if we look at Pete Buttigieg, if I can say his name right, if we look at Pete Buttigieg, who is going to be the new transportation secretary under the Biden administration, he is so sold on electric vehicles. And I think we could see, more and more push towards that. Not only that, Gavin Newsom has uh, California only being able to sell electric vehicles by 2035. So you have the whole state of California, which is this like population of Canada, that has to be on electric vehicles. So I do not see this going away.
Really interesting, because they're too big and too, you've seen their stock, like they are a massive company right now. And so if it really is the case that these solid state batteries are just drastically better, I think Tesla will adopt them. I don't know if that what that process will look like, develop them in-house, buy the technology, partner. I don't know what it'll be, but they're not going to stick with a losing technology unless it's dramatically cheaper, because something I haven't seen with these solid state batteries is cost. um, Tesla at their battery day, they talked nonstop about cost, ways to just really save pennies on these things to get them cheaper and cheaper. And if the solid state batteries are dramatically more expensive, that could be a deal breaker. Now, one big advantage of them is also because they're more energy dense, you can get more mileage out of them for electric vehicles. So you're not limited to these 300 miles per charge, things like that. Yeah. So here's the innovation, the big innovation with solid state batteries, right? So now you take this whole section now in the middle, and you make it out of a solid ceramic material. I don't know what QuantumScape is actually using. I think there's been I've read a bunch of news articles, and people think that it's LLZO. LLZO is a type of ceramic. LLZO, it stands for lithium lanthanum zirconate. It's a garnet structure, so it's a ceramic. It's a ceramic that has a complicated crystal structure, but it has lots of lithium in it.
Isn't ceramic
Um,
one of your expertise? Ceramics?
Ceramics is my jam. Yeah, I do know ceramics and crystal structures. In any case, so now you've got, instead of a liquid there, you've got a solid. So that has some pretty big advantages. With a big solid material, like when the lithium tries to grow these little dendrites across it, it can't grow across a solid nearly as easily as it can a liquid, right? So that's a pretty big advantage. Um, because of that, because you don't have to worry about dendrites growing across, what they can do is they can get rid of the anode. They don't have to have graphite. And that's one of the big things that it looks like. And again, I don't know if QuantumScape has actually admitted that this is what it is,
No,
but
they're
the
not.
the
They're not talking.
community that I follow, the battery researchers, like, holy cow, that it's an anodeless battery. So basically, instead of having graphite over there, what we think they have is a just pile of lithium metal on this side, that they just have lithium metal, which what that means is you can store all the same lithium as before, but without any of this space. And so you can shrink your batteries and make them smaller because you don't need the graphite to store them. Now, normally with the regular lithium ion battery, you wouldn't be able to get away with this because if you had lithium metal over here, then your dendrite growth problem would get even worse. And that's why they use graphite to sort of hold those lithium atoms. But here, if you've got an electrolyte that prevents the dendrites from growing, then you don't need the graphite. And so graphite takes up, I read one account that said like 50%. So somewhere on the order of, I'd say half of the cell's volume is taken up by that graphite and the cost associated with that, obviously. So you're able to cut cost by removing the graphite and you're able to cut a lot of volume. So you're able to make higher energy density batteries, which is great. People want to make these things smaller and smaller and more energy dense. And this would be one way to do it while cutting weight. You'd cut weight, volume, and you get, so it's a big advancement. But even if you did the nail test, there's nothing here that's flammable, right? That was
Oh,
the other thing. When you passed the nail test through it before, right? When you put this big nail going through it, there was two problems. One is that your battery stops working because the current now just goes right along the nail instead of through your phone. But the second problem was that when it does that, it heats up the fluid around it, that liquid electrolyte, and catches
God.
fire. But here, it's a ceramic. It's not going to catch on fire. In fact, nothing in this cell is going to catch on fire. So your battery will stop working, but it won't start a fire, which is a pretty. So, anyways, all
See?
these reasons are reasons why you're getting big hype about QuantumScape's announcement, because this is solving some fundamental problems that the battery world has faced. And I'm not even, and another one, I'll say one more thing that they seem to have a big advantage on is lifetime cycling. One of the reasons why your batteries get worse and worse over time is because of these irreversible kinetic reaction where you're losing capacitance, say through dendrite growth or things like that. And this will also be lessened because you're not growing across this electrolyte. You should also have better lifetimes on these batteries. And that I did see. I think it was just yesterday I saw that they tweeted their cycle performance, and they are better. I mean, it used to be, I forget the number, like it would retain 80% capacity up to 800,000 cycles or something like that. And their most recent stuff is significantly better, 10 or 15% better, it looked like. So it's a big advancement. So yeah,
I'm hoping.
I'm pretty sold. I think it's pretty exciting stuff. This is what they released. They claim it's a solid state battery. Like I said, the articles I've been reading think that it's LLZO. And so to make that ceramic membrane, like you see here in this picture, flex like that, you would have to make it extremely thin. So maybe what they did is they did not innovate the material selection. They used an existing electrolyte, possibly. Again, I don't know. If this is LLZO, then they used an existing material, but they found a way to make it really thin. And making it thin has a couple big benefits for you. For one thing, the thinner you make it, think about it, your lithium over here has to travel less of a distance, right? If you make this region really thin.
Yeah.
And so your people get really hung up on this what's called the conductivity of this region, meaning how well does it conduct lithium ions? But that's just one aspect of it. The conductivity is like a materials property. But the other thing you could do is just shrink the dimensions so it doesn't have to conduct as far. And so maybe that's what they did is they made a ceramic that is really thin. Like, I don't know. The fact that they show this bent like that tells me they made a really thin ceramic of probably LLZO. They did. Their battery might look something more like this, where now you've got your electrolyte, which is really narrow, probably, their cathode, which might look the same as before, and their anode is really just like pure lithium.
Yeah.
This is what people think they have is lithium metal, and this is sometimes called an anodeless architecture because there's no graphite there. It's just lithium metal that turns into a lithium ion. Um, I don't know if that's the case. Like I said,
Right.
everything I'm reading is like speculation because I've never seen their cell. It's interesting what Toyota and like Solid Power are doing. So take Toyota, like they've been working on a solid state battery. They've announced it for, it's been years that they said that they've been working on it. And then it was like 2 days after QuantumScape's announcement, Toyota said, we're doing it too. And we also are way closer to manufacturing this, right? Because they're doing it themselves and they already know how to scale. I don't know if they're making their own batteries currently. I don't know that. But in any case, so it's possible that even though QuantumScape beat them to the punch with their announcement and maybe even has a better product right now, Toyota might still win because they can actually manufacture theirs at scale. Whereas QuantumScape, they've had a lot of investment. On Bill Gates, a bunch of people have poured money into QuantumScape. They've received an insane amount of funding, but you're competing with Toyota, which is one of the biggest companies on the planet. So
And they already have. Do they take as long, I wonder, to charge
no,
as
no, no. That was one of their big QuantumScape claimed, and so did Toyota. That you can charge these things in like 10 minutes. There's a couple reasons why I think that they can do that. For one, when you put a ceramic
go back to
electrolyte,
you
you
go
can remember now you don't have to worry about lithium dendrites forming. Normally, when you charge things at higher voltages, you increase the driving force to like really reverse that reaction, or that's how you charge it, right? When you charge it, you're basically taking and you're sending the lithium from the cathode back to the anode. If you do that at a higher voltage, you charge it at a higher voltage, then you cause more dendrites to form and you destroy your battery. This is why a lot of people were skeptical with like Teslas with the superchargers. They're like, yeah, but if you do the superchargers all the time, it'll affect the lifetime of your battery. That is completely true. But it may not be as true with a solid electrolyte because now you're preventing those dendrites. So if you could basically supercharge all the time, that's a huge advantage in charging. And I think that, well, that is one of the talking points that either QuantumScape or Toyota, I can't remember which one, was saying with their new solid state battery was faster charging, like 10 minutes and you're basically charged.
NIO stock tanked this past year in 2020 after it rose up about 120. One of the reasons that it tanked was the fact that it was rumored to possibly be delisted by the Trump administration. So I don't think in the Biden administration that we need to worry about Chinese companies being delisted. That being said, one of the great things about NIO is it just was announced on NIO Day on Saturday that they will be using solid state battery technology. So what does that mean for QS and Toyota? One of the things I like about NIO and the reason I think its stock is going to go up is it is a subscription model. It is an interchangeable technology as far as batteries go. One of the things that I think is neat about its solid state battery is it says that its ceramic that it's using is as thin as a human hair, which I think is incredible. So I think NIO's stock is going to continue to skyrocket. The reason I think it's going to be a little bit better than QuantumScape is because it already has a vehicle, it already has electrification, it already has subscribers, it's made more sales. China is less of a lockdown state than Europe and the United States. The economy is open. So I see them buying their own products. I see them adopting this solid state battery. It's less of a fire hazard. They're quicker, around 15 minutes to get 80% battery charge. But even if not that, they're able to just swap out a battery. So one of the biggest deterrents from an electronic vehicle or from like something like a Tesla is fear of running out of battery, and also possibly the longevity of a battery. And so if you can switch it out, you really don't have that as a worry. But one of the other things that NIO does is they are a subscription model. They are an all-in-one type deal, but they also have their insurance built in. So they're not only a car company, now a battery company, but they're also an insurance company for the largest population in the world. I think that is a good investment. And so there's my take on NIO. One of the reasons we're going to talk about QS real fast. I think that they are undervalued from what the analysts are showing. I think they have a lot more potential than we're giving them credit for. The reason that they have kind of plummeted last week and this week, one, I would say last week when the early investors were able to finally sell their shares. It was at 120 and it tanked 50%, but that was because more shares were flooding the market. And I think that that is not indicative of the company or the industry. I think it's indicative of just the market. It continued to bounce around, and it's not, I bought it at its low and it's still not high yet. But I think one of the things that's neat about QS is they only have a 1 year, they're backed by Bill Gates, which I think is phenomenal. But two, they aren't a car company, so they have a 1 year contract with Volkswagen. Now, once that 1 year contract is up, are they able to be sold to someone like Tesla? Is their proprietary information able to be sold to another company that would like them? So that's one thing that I think is neat, that they had a lot of early investors and they had a lot of financing. One of the things that I think is really neat about QuantumScape is the fact that their battery isn't just for cars. They're talking about airplanes.
And think about it, that's a big deal because
They
it's
have
already like hard for electric planes. Like there's a reason we don't fly in electric planes right now because the power density and the energy density you need for batteries just doesn't exist. But if you cut out the anode, and you can make that electrolyte really thin so it doesn't weigh a lot, now you've got something there.
if it's able to do airplanes and if their battery is able to have that much power where it's able to run an airplane, when that is the number one cost, fuel cost is the number one cost for airplanes, I think that will be incredible. So I think they are undervalued. I would say 120 again, if not 150 to 200 in the next year to 2 years as their technology becomes more available. So where are they going to manufacture is kind of a question. So are they going to manufacture them and then sell them or to car companies? We have a lot we still need to know. We have a lot we still need to learn about QuantumScape and their business model and where they're taking things. Not only is QS doing it, Toyota's doing it, NIO's doing it, Solid State's doing it, who has merged with Ford Motor Company. We're looking at Toyota. I feel like this is a lowball estimate. I feel like they could be higher. If Tesla's in the 800s and Toyota's able to, maybe acquire some LiDAR technology to make it self-driving. They've already got the solid state battery, which is technically better than Tesla's. I think we're undervaluing Toyota. I think Toyota is a good investment. They are a solid company. They are a large company. And I think they're making the changes necessary to compete in this EV market. So I don't see it going down based on their technology. Yeah, that's way cool. Thank you.
Hey,
So
my pleasure.
at some point, I just want to know what you're working on as far as like ceramics and whatnot, but you say you have some projects. So I'll let you go.
Thanks for chatting. It's fun.
If you appreciated and valued this information, remember to like and subscribe, and let's get invested.